Guys, boxing gossip here on a Saturday night. You're going to have to forgive the vest. I wasn't planning on making a video tonight, but decided to hit another recording on some of the boxing at York Hall tonight. Now, I didn't get the opportunity to go to the York Hall card tonight, but decided to keep my eyes on it on Twitter and social media and that sort of thing, because as you guys know, big fan of the domestic heavyweight scene, and you know, a few guys who are on the borders of sort of English title level were operating tonight. So Dominic Akinlade, Southern Area champion, was fighting Josh Sandland, a 1-0 prospect, and then later on in the bill, Tom Little was fighting Tom Dallas. Let's start with Dom Akinlade. Dom Akinlade tonight was defeated over 6 rounds by Josh Sandland, who was a 1-0 prospect going into the fight. The referee scored it 60-54 in favour of Sandland. So, in other words, the ref gave every single round of the fight to the 1-0 fighter rather than the Southern Area champion, Dom Akinlade. Now, I've spoken to Dom Akinlade a few times, and he's always come across like a very, very nice bloke and a bit of a gentleman. So, you know, I feel bad for him that he lost. I actually was able to watch the fight because Dove Box Promotions, Tommy Dove's promotional company, streamed the bill live on their Facebook page. So I'm going to give a shout out to Tommy Dove actually for doing that, because, and also a shout out to Mason who sent me the link to watch it. But yeah, a lot of these bills at York Hall and small hall shows go under the radar, and as a result, it means that the fighters involved don't get the visibility that the hardcore fans would like. So Tommy Dove did this bill at York Hall tonight. Look, I'm recording this at 11 o'clock at night. The bill, you know, probably finished, I don't know, 10, half 10, something like that. And at the time of going to air, that live stream had 32,000 views on it. So, you know, you may be able to get 1,000 people into York Hall, but he got 32,000 people to tune in via Facebook. So, credit to Tommy Dove for being forward-thinking, embracing these technologies and streaming it live, because it meant boxing fans like myself and many others were able to watch the action. And whilst that may mean some people didn't buy a ticket tonight, I think it's about investing in your fighters for the future, and it means their profiles are certainly going to be raised. So anyway, Dom Akinlade versus Sandman. You know, when the fight started, when the guys were in the corners getting their final instructions, people were commenting in the Facebook live section, Sandman is going to get crushed, Dom Akinlade is going to win in 1 round or 2 rounds. Akinlade was a much bigger bloke. He looked like he was 2 or 3 inches taller. He looked in far superior physical condition. Sandman looked small, he looked very heavy, very out of shape. And, you know, the consensus seemed to be that it was going to be a very easy night's work for Dom Akinlade. From the first 5 seconds, it was apparent that this was going to be anything but easy, because Sandman came out and boxed in a manner that one wouldn't have expected, having seen his appearance. From the opening bell, he was showing quick upper body movement, quick head movement. He was getting low. He was an awkward opponent. Akinlade's tactic in the early rounds seemed to be to establish that jab and try and win rounds behind the jab. And Sandman was making that very hard to do with his head movement and the angles that he was presenting Akinlade with. As the fight progressed, it was clear that Sandman's tactic wasn't to stay on the outside and necessarily swap jabs with the bigger man, but instead he was going to try and maul and come forward and, you know, put Akinlade on his back foot. And to be honest, that didn't make for an attractive fight. You know, the 6 rounds often more looked like a rugby maul or looked like a wrestling contest as opposed to clean boxing. But Sandman was effective, and Sandman would come forward, he'd put his head on Akinlade's chest, and he'd go to work. And if I'm honest, it exposed a lack of inside awareness and inside game from Dom Akinlade. Time and time again, I saw Dom Akinlade effectively just standing there, doing very, very little on the inside. Sandman, who appeared appeared very out of shape physically, seemed to have a decent engine and came on by far the strongest of the two, and his work rate was far higher, particularly in the 5th and 6th rounds when Akinlade seemed to be very low volume. Sandman was putting his head on Akinlade's chest and just throwing consistently, and Akinlade didn't seem to know how to deal with it. He was trying to hold, but he was holding very ineffectively. He seemed to be holding Sandman's head, and Sandman was, consistently able to loop overhands over or, drop to the body. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective. And what I saw was two fighters effectively hugging each other, with Akinlade doing very, very little other than just standing there, and Sandman consistently throwing overhand punches and working to the body. So if you have to pick a winner, it's going to be the guy who's working. Akinlade on the outside seemed to give up on his jab in the mid to later ends of the fight because maybe he realised it wasn't effective, and he seemed to go with haymaker punches. He missed wildly with 3 or 4 big haymaker hooks. He also, he had some success with the uppercut, but all in all, the effect of the impression you were left with if you were trying to judge the fight is Sandman was the one coming forward, Sandman was the one throwing the higher volume, and Sandman was the one landing with the higher percentage of work. I've got to say Akinlade's defence was very, very poor in this fight. I've talked about Sandman's head movement and upper body movement. Akinlade showed no head movement. He was very upright, chin straight in the air, and he made no defensive adjustments throughout the course of the fight. Time after time after time, he was caught by Sandman. He wasn't making any, there was no defence of any note there. Very upright, very straight up, no head movement. His hands were low. He didn't have anything defensively. Sandman was clocking him at will to the head. And, that defensive frailty from Akinlade, you'd have to say if he was in an English title level fight or a British title level fight, it would be foreseeable that he'd get hurt in a fight like that because he was just so defensively unaware. So Sandman won. He won convincing fashion. He showed a better engine than Akinlade, better defence than Akinlade. He showed a better inside game than Akinlade. And yeah, I think he was very much a worthy winner. He now, after 2 fights, has a fairly good resume. Let's have it right. In his debut fight, he beat a 4-0 fighter. In his second fight, he's gone and beaten Dominic Akinlade, the Southern Area title, who was due to fight for the English title in his very next fight. So, credit to Josh Sandman. I didn't look at him today thinking I was seeing someone who was necessarily going to hit new peaks in the sport. Sandman, for me, he's obviously not the cleanest technician. He obviously isn't the most well-conditioned boxer. He's not got the most size, and he doesn't seem to have the most elite skills on the outside. Having said that, he's a 2-0 fighter. Most 2-0 fighters are fighting guys with 30 losses on their record. So credit to him, and who knows? Who knows? Maybe he can go into the mix in the English title scene, and maybe now he's scored these upset wins, perhaps he'll get some learning fights against journeymen, and then potentially he can be built up. He's only a young guy, as I understand it, so fair play to him. As for Akinlade versus Nathan Gorman, that's a fight I was potentially looking at getting tickets to, because it's in Crystal Palace, which isn't a million miles away from where I'm based. I don't know whether that fight is still going to go ahead. You'd have to suggest it could potentially be in jeopardy after that loss. After all, it is only 6 weeks away. You could potentially question, the matchmaking and why this fight was actually needed so close to that big fight. I've got to say, even if the fight does go ahead, it's a far less intriguing fight having seen this loss, because realistically, Nathan Gorman's a hot prospect. He's a very, very good fighter. I've done videos on him in the past. And the trouble Sandman was able to cause Dominic Akinlade tonight, you have to really question whether anyone could look at that and then pick Akinlade to beat Nathan Gorman, having lost all 6 rounds on the referee's card to a 1-0 prospect tonight. I don't know who will fight Nathan Gorman if Akinlade were to pull out. Potentially Tom Little, who was successful against Tom Dallas, or maybe even Sandland. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe if he can take the spot, or maybe Akinlade will still fight. It's just hard to buy into him genuinely beating a guy like Nathan Gorman after what happened tonight. In the main event, you know, in the later fight, I don't know if it's the main event. We'll call it the main event. Tom Little stopped Tom Dallas in one round. You'd have to say this really has to be the end of the road for Tom Dallas now. He's had successive early stoppages, and you just wonder what he's really got to offer at any level in the sport. Tom Little, credit when due, looked as good as I've ever seen him, if not better tonight. You see the two guys come out, and the fight only lasts a minute or a minute and a half, something like that. So, you know, there's not too much in-depth analysis you can go. But Tom Little looked like he had a lot of flow to his work. He looked light on his feet. He looked in better shape. He was very light on his feet. He moved well. He had a smoothness and a slickness to his work, and real hand speed behind his jab. You know, I noticed that his jab came out quick and snappy. By contrast, Tom Dallas, very upright, very rigid, stiff jab, you know, that sort of thing. And yeah, Tom Little looked by far the superior fighter in there, by far. He caught Tom Dallas with an absolute pizza of a 1-2 jab cross combination in the first minute of the fight. And from that moment, the writing very much looked on the wall. You know, Little just looked like the smoother, more explosive fighter. And he caught Tom Dallas the second time, and Dallas went back to the corner and was clearly hurt and just put his hands up, and Tom Little must have unloaded 30, 40 punches on him, and you know, none of them were landing clean, none of them were bombs, but the referee rightly stepped in and waved the fight off. So credit to Tom Little. He was obviously unsuccessful in his fight against Dom Akinlade, but that was a close fight, and for me, Little appears to have improved since then. He appears to have been in better shape. I understand he's made some changes to his training, perhaps his conditioning, and you know, Little, for me, appears to have superior boxing capability, technically, than Dom Akinlade. He seems to be a bit snappier these days. He seems to put punches together a bit better, perhaps a bit more defensively aware, perhaps a bit faster as well. So even though he took that L, I'd maybe pick him to reverse that form if there was to be a rematch. And as I say, even though Akinlade beat Little, right now, having seen that, I think Little versus Gorman is a more competitive fight than Akinlade versus Gorman. And even though this fight was over the course of 90 seconds tonight, so it's hard to make a true and fair judgment of Tom Little based on that, I'd want to see him again after that. You know, I hope he stays active, and I hope you know, he's in another fight at that sort of Southern Area to English title level, because yeah, I thought he looked really, really good in there. So yeah, all in all, Tom Dallas, you know, I don't know if that's the end of the road for him. Dom Akinlade, it's going to be a hard loss to come back from that. It's going to be a hard loss. Let's see if he goes straight into the Gorman fight, or let's see if he steps back and rebuilds. Josh Sandland, very, very, very well done to him for winning that in his second fight. You know, he's someone who needs to be built, though. He's not someone who's, you know, ready for me to step up to English title level. He needs to take a drop back and have some investment in his career. And yeah, fair play to Tom Little as well. So that's a brief review, guys. Check out the Dovebox Facebook page, and you can actually see the fights on a live stream. You can go back and watch it now on the Facebook page. Leave your comments below. What do you make of the fights and fighters? Where do the guys go from here? And let me know your thoughts. Will Akinlade Gorman go ahead? Who would you pick if it did go ahead? If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel or you haven't done so before, please take the time to hit subscribe so you can check out all my other videos. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.